Finance Friday. How's everyone doing tonight? As you saw, our theme this week has been about retirement, your magic number, making sure that you have enough to when you prepare to retire. So, while this is not really, going to do much for the younger kids, they're really not going to get a whole lot out of it. Your teens especially, and then of course any adults. Oh my gosh, this is like so important. So, just because this is a Family Finance Friday does not mean it's only for the kids. Um, and so the first thing we're going to do is I did go ahead and post in the I don't know, preamble or whatever you want to call that a link. And I actually found at calculator.net they have a retirement calculator that actually allows people under the age of 18. A lot of retirement calculators are created and sponsored by advisors and planners, and so they want you to be over 18 before you use it because they want you as a client. And you may or may not want to. In fact, chances are, if you're in this group, you probably are not looking for someone else to do this for you. You want to do it yourself. You want to, know what you got to do, and you're going to figure out a way to do it. So, the nice thing about the calculator.net retirement calculator is that it does allow you to put in whatever age you want, and you can really have a lot of fun with it and play around. So, there's nothing that says you can only do this once. You can go back and do it multiple times. You can change things up. Look at different assumptions and really see what feels right to you. Now, what you're going to have to enter into this is your current age, your anticipated retirement age, how long you expect to live, so basically how old you expect to be when you die. And a good way, especially if you're younger, is to look at how old your grandparents were, your great grandparents. Kind of look at your older family members and see how old they were when they passed, because chances are it's going to be something fairly similar. It used to be that we could expect the younger generations to live longer than that. Unfortunately, though, a few years ago they hit this point where the youth actually are living less uh, less years than their elders were. So, but just so for a basic idea, take a look at what your grandparents or great grandparents did, and kind of go from there. Or whatever feels good to you. If you say, "Hey, I'm going to live to be 150," you put that in, because you never know what's going to happen, right? Um, and then you want to put in your current income. Now, once again, if you're young, especially if you're a teenager, this may be not a lot. If you're 16, 17, you may only be making a couple thousand a year. You may, 4,000 a year. It's not going to be a huge amount, but put that in, because it actually allows you to multiply that by what you want your retirement income to be. So don't be afraid of the fact that, if right now you're not making a whole lot of money, maybe you're only making a few $1,000s, maybe you're making 40,000, but you want to be able to retire on 100,000 or even more. Don't let that stop you. Put in where you are now, and then I'm going to walk you through how to multiply in percentage that number to get to where you want to go. And I've got all this in my notes, so please read through what I've written, because that's going to be your cheat sheet for this one. So you want to go ahead and leave your average investment return, which is they defaulted to 6%, and the inflation rate at 3%. Those are based on historical averages. So right now inflation is really low and investment returns are actually doing pretty good. But over time, those are conservative numbers. So go ahead and leave those as is, unless you want to decrease your investment return and increase your inflation. You could do that if you want to be a little more pessimistic about it. Nothing wrong with that. What you do not want to do is increase your rate of return and decrease your inflation rate, because that's where you set yourself up for failure. So that's the one thing to keep in mind. Now, here's how you're going to figure out your retirement income, or that percentage for your retirement income, because at the very last one it's going to ask you what percentage. And it works off of the assumption that you are, kind of in your prime working years, making about as much money as you're going to make, and that when you retire you'll have the mortgage paid off. You're not going to be worried about student loans and things like that. So it says, put in 70 to 80%. Well, if you're making $4,000 a year, there's no way you want to retire on $3,000 a year, right? I mean, come on. So, what you want to do is figure out what you want your retirement income to be. And we talked about this a little bit last night, so you can go back and revisit that if you'd like. But basically, you want to take a look at, where you think it'd be now. If you're already an adult and you have your budget already in place, or you know what your expenses currently are, you could go ahead and use those as a starting point, and then decrease anything that'll be paid off before you retire, and then add in anything you want to increase expenses on. So say, for example, right now, you spend a couple $1,000s a year on travel. Maybe you want to be able to travel more in retirement, so you might want to bump that up to 10,000 a year or 20,000 a year or whatever. Also keeping in mind that you might want to travel more to see your grandkids or your great grandkids, or friends or family or whoever. So, if that's something that's important to you, add that in. There's other expenses as well. Maybe you want to have a new car every 2 or 3 years, so you factor that in there as a payment. Whatever it is, you know what you want and how you envision. Remember we did that visualization a couple weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago. I can't remember now how long it's been. But as an accountant, any accountant will tell you that we are time travelers. We're never in the present day. We're always working in the future. We're always working in the past. And so I have like no sense of time. But anyways, if you look back in the last week or two, I walked you through how to visualize the future. And so, what do you see yourself doing when you look at that future? What do you see in your mind? And once again, don't be afraid it doesn't, if it's not very clear now, because the more you do that practice and exercise, the clearer it becomes, the more you can fill in all those little details, because it's like super exciting. Okay, so take a look at, so what you're going to do then is, after you've figured out, kind of what your expenses are now, what you're going to add to it, what you're going to subtract, you're going to have your number. And then what you want to do is multiply that basically by about 2%, 2 to 3% each year, for however many years it is to retirement. And that'll tell you how much income you need when you retire, in the year that you retire, to live on. And then this calculator will actually add to that. So, figure out your number. Now, I put in here an example of, if you're earning $4,000 a year right now, and you've decided, after you figure out all those little things in your head, you're going to need at least $100,000 a year in retirement, and in order to be able to live the way you want to live. And that's in today's dollars. So what you're going to do is, you're going to take that $100,000, divide it by $4,000, and that's going to give you a number of 25. Now, in order to make that a percent, you have to multiply it by 100. So you're actually going to add 2 zeros onto it, which gives you 2,500%. And so when you plug that in into that calculator, that's how it'll know how to get you up to that amount. And then what it'll do is actually calculate the future value of what that would be based on inflation. Okay, so that kind of makes sense, I hope. If not, ask questions below, or re-watch this a couple times just to let it sink in. But it's actually very, very simple. I'm probably making it more complicated than it has to be, because all you're going to do is you're going to take what you want to have as income in the first year of retirement, divide it by your current annual income, and add 2 zeros, and then put it in, and then plug it into the calculator. So then, after you do all that and you hit calculate, it's going to tell you how much you need to have in savings in order to have the income you want. And that's going to be the baseline for your magic number. Okay? So, for example, when I did that for this person, I actually I made them 16 years old, and I said they want to retire at 62 with a life expectancy of 95. And I did not put anything in for Social Security. I did not put anything in for other income, like if they own rental properties or have a pension or any of that. I've left everything at 0. Left the average investment return at 6%, inflation at 3%, current income is 4,000, and then I put in that they wanted to have 2,500% of their current income for their lifestyle. And when I did that, and I hit calculate, it says I need to have, or that person needs to have, a little over $8 million at age 62 in order to be able to retire the way they want to. And it says lifestyle for retirement much better than your current lifestyle. Yeah, one would hope. So, that's how now if I thought that person, or if I was that person and I said, oh, well, I'm going to have, $2,000 a month in rental income. And I hit calculate again. So it's super easy. Just go down there, make that change, hit calculate. And now all of a sudden I only need 6.2 million. So just having that $2,000 a month in monthly rental income, saves me from having to save $2 million. So that's pretty exciting. So, go ahead and play around with this. Have fun with it because it is a lot of fun. I actually I had to go through quite a few calculators to figure it out, but this one I was like, oh, this is a blast. I love this calculator. Um, and also remember that you can change this number as your life unfolds. So if you're young and you're doing this, or your kids are young, or you know, down the road, if things change, you can make those changes as you want to. There's nothing that says this is set in stone and you have to keep it forever. If you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, you may down the road decide, or even your teens, and down the road you may decide, that's not as important. I thought it was a priority when I was younger. Now it's not a priority anymore. And so, at that point, you can always change it again and adjust it as you want to. The one thing to keep in mind is that it is a whole lot easier to have passive income. So if you are, younger and making these plans for down the road, and you want to have that lifestyle, try and figure out ways that you can create passive income, because that way you don't have to save as much because you already have it. The other thing too is that it's a little bit better to save too much than not enough. And so if you're at all unsure of what number, if you're not sure what age to put in a little bit older than what you expect to be when you die, or if you are unsure of the income, put in a little bit more than what you think you might need, because once again, it's better to have too much available at retirement than not enough. And the other thing too is that you will want to take in, it's not going to be just savings. It's going to be your 401k, your retirement account. If you do end up getting a governmental pension, once again, as we talked about last night, a lot of people are not expecting that. But if you're a little bit older, then you can more reasonably expect it'll be available. Um, you know, you may have something that you absolutely love to do and you don't want to completely retire from, but you want to have the option of doing what you want. And so you may have some, part-time employment, whether it's working for someone else or working for yourself or doing sales or whatever the case might be. So don't, take that into consideration. Plus, the other things that will factor into your savings, which is, the 6 million or $8 million, that number that we're coming up with here, is that, you know, you're going to have your house that you can sell. You're going to have stocks. You're going to have bonds. You're going to have, savings. You're going to have, other assets. So those things all go into that number, that magic number. So it's not like you actually have to save, $6 million in order to have the lifestyle you want down the road. There's a lot that goes into that. And nobody says it has to be a retirement account. It doesn't have to be a governmentally recognized retirement account. It can be, like I said, things, just assets that you have on your own. Your own personal savings, your own stocks, your own, things that you're just doing on your own, rental properties, I'm trying to think what else, gosh, annuities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's kind of like all the assets go in there. So what I want to know is, what number did you come up with? And were you surprised? So please share that in the comments below. I love to hear it. I also went through and this just a little bit ago and checked out all of your responses to the poll, and I love the wide variety that we have. I would love to get even more. So if you haven't responded to that poll yet, please, respond. It's fun. It's nice. It's fun to see where everybody is and where they're going. But you can also, and it'll be also interesting to see how much it varies between what you put on the poll, if you did answer the poll, and what came up with using this calculator. So, that could be a fun thing to see as well. So on that note, everyone have a wonderful week. As always, if you have any questions, comments, anything, share them in the comments below. Feel free to direct message me if you are a little shy. And I will see everyone next week. Have a wonderful weekend.